Welcome back. Find a comfortable position and let your body get heavy. Take a slow breath in and let it out. There's nothing you need to do right now. Know where you need to be. Tonight I have 6 stories for you. Let them wash over you. You don't need to follow along closely. Just let the words carry you. Let's begin. The afternoon sunlight poured gently through the wide kitchen windows, drenching the space in a soft golden hue. I remember the warm scent of freshly baked bread wafting through the air, mingling with the faint sweetness of vanilla from the small bowl of icing sugar I had left nearby on the counter. My favorite apron, a cheerful red with tiny white polka dots, was tied snugly around my waist as I flitted about, preparing for our small office gathering later that day. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, a comforting backdrop to the rhythmic sound of my hands kneading soft dough on the cool wooden table. The world outside was vibrant with the sounds of summer, birds chirping, a faint breeze rustling the leaves of the maple tree just beyond the window. I paused for a moment, feeling the sun's warmth on my back and looking out at the blue sky, dotted with wispy clouds. It was one of those perfect days when everything seemed to slow down, the kind of day that made you forget about time. The clock on the wall ticked softly, its steady rhythm accompanying my thoughts as I thought about the people coming over later. My co-workers, my friends. I had baked a loaf of banana bread, an office favorite, and was excited to share it with them. I imagined their smiles, the way they would lean in for a taste, eyes lighting up at the familiar sweetness and warmth. As I continued to knead the dough, I thought about Sarah, my colleague from the marketing department. She had been a little distant lately, her laughter less frequent, and I wondered if it was something I had done. But the truth, I reminded myself, was that life at work had been a little chaotic lately. Our team had launched a new campaign, and the pressure had begun to weigh heavily on us all. I could almost imagine her sitting at her desk, scribbling notes while glancing at the computer screen, frowning slightly as if trying to decipher a complex puzzle. With my mind wandering, I decided to start cleaning up my workspace. The sound of clinking dishes was comforting as I washed the mixing bowl, my hands submerged in warm, soapy water. As I wrapped my hands in a towel, I briefly allowed myself to think about the gentle hum of voices that would soon fill my kitchen, hoping that everyone would leave the day feeling a little lighter, a little brighter. Later, as the sun dipped low in the sky, I set out a few chairs around the kitchen table and placed my baked goods on a simple white platter in the center. The banana bread, golden brown and glistening softly, was adorned with delicate slices of banana on top, each piece inviting. One by one, my coworkers began to arrive, their laughter spilling into the house even before they crossed the threshold. I felt a surge of warmth as each familiar face entered, greeted by the comforting aroma and the smiles that broke out upon seeing the treats. I watched as Tom, our ever-enthusiastic graphic designer, took a huge slice for himself, a playful grin plastered across his face as he exclaimed about how it looked good enough to eat. Sarah was among the last to arrive. She stepped through the doorway, a little hesitant, her brow furrowing as she took a breath to absorb the atmosphere. Her hair fell loosely around her shoulders, and as I drew closer, I caught the subtle fragrance of lavender that trailed behind her. I offered her a piece of banana bread, hoping the warmth of my gesture would break through the cloud that seemed to hang around her. "Thanks," she murmured, her brow relaxing slightly as she accepted the slice. She took a small bite, and I caught her letting out a soft, appreciative sigh. "This is really nice. You always know how to bake just the right thing," she added, managing a faint smile. We fell into easy conversation, the chatter flowing like a gentle stream. There was a comforting rhythm to it, small jokes, shared memories from past projects, snippets of weekend plans. And as I listened, I noticed the way Sarah began to engage more, her smile growing more genuine as the evening progressed. It was as if the warmth of the moment was melting away her tension, piece by piece. As I poured cups of herbal tea, fragrant and calming, I felt a small twinge of relief settling within me. Sarah and I found ourselves drawn into a quiet corner of the room as Tom and others embarked on their light-hearted banter. I gingerly asked her how she had been feeling, trying to keep my voice light, as if I were hoping to coax the clouds away. "I've been okay, I suppose," she replied, her tone softening. "It's just been a bit much lately. I think I just needed a little break." She sighed and looked over at the group, laughter echoing as they playfully teased one another. "I guess it's nice to step away from the chaos for a while." "Absolutely," I replied, nodding knowingly. "Sometimes it helps to just breathe a little, doesn't it?" We shared a quiet moment watching our colleagues enjoy their time, and I felt a genuine connection being rekindled. Even amid the easy camaraderie unfolding around us in this pocket of serenity, I sensed how crucial it was to be there for one another, to allow space for both joy and weariness. As the evening shifted toward twilight, the gentle light in the kitchen softened. I dimmed the lamp slightly, creating a warm, golden glow that wrapped around us all like a tender embrace. Sarah smiled more frequently now, her laughter bubbling up at the teasing of our co-workers' antics as if she had been transported to a happier place. I found myself reflecting on the moments that led us to this very point, the small decisions and gentle exchanges, the way we navigated the nuances of our work lives together. The conversation turned light, the shared stories spilling forth naturally, and I watched as Sarah reached for another slice of banana bread, her eyes twinkling along with the laughter of our friends. Eventually, the evening began to wind down. I noticed the sleepy expressions on faces, the way people leaned back in their chairs, full and content. Tom was the first to get up, stretching and yawning, while others followed suit, the warmth of the night still lingering in the air. As I began to gather the empty cups and dishes, Sarah approached again, a genuine smile on her lips. "Thank you for this," she said softly. "For the bread, for the space. I really needed it." Her words wrapped around me like a cozy blanket, reassuring and heartfelt. "Anytime. We're all in this together, right?" I said, hoping it conveyed the warmth I felt inside. "Definitely," she replied, and her eyes sparkled with something unfurling, a reminder of the bond we shared amid our chaotic days at work. Eventually, the last of my friends slipped into the night, the sounds of laughter fading into the soft chirping of crickets outside. I stepped back into the kitchen, now quiet save for the gentle hum of the refrigerator. The remains of the banana bread were tucked safely in a container, and the faint aroma lingered behind, sweet and comforting. I turned off the lights, letting the kitchen darken and settle, and felt a deep contentment unfurling within me. I took a moment to breathe, appreciating the day's warmth. As I pulled the blanket around my shoulders, I closed my eyes, letting the sigh of the day wash over me like a soft wave retreating back into the sea, calm and grateful for the connections made, and the laughter shared, ready to drift into the quiet dream of tomorrow. Close your eyes and settle in for this one. The air was thick with the scent of freshly baked bread, warm and comforting, as I stood in my little kitchen that brightened early in the day with sunlight filtering through sheer curtains, casting gentle patterns on the counter. It was a Saturday morning, the kind where the world felt just a bit slower, giving me space to breathe. I leaned against the cool marble, my fingers tracing the edge of a chipped teacup that had seen many mornings like this one, perhaps more than I could count. Outside, the birds chirped a soft melody, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the old oak tree standing sentinel just beyond my window. I had taken some time to collect my thoughts after a long week, a week filled with quiet decisions that weighed heavily on my heart. I noted the way the light played on the polished wood of my kitchen table, how the shadows shifted ever so slightly with the passing clouds outside. I had chosen to step away from a job that had been comfortable, but, truth be told, no longer filled with joy. It was a decision that hadn't come easily, and now, in the quiet of this morning, it felt like both a weight lifted and an uncertainty looming like a soft fog on the horizon. As I prepared my breakfast, the familiar clink of utensils and the sizzle of eggs in the skillet lulled me into a rhythm, one that felt soothing and familiar. I could hear the gentle hum of the refrigerator, the faint sound of a car driving by outside, and the rustle of the trees. I made a mental note to check on the herbs I'd planted a few weeks before. Their tender green leaves peeking out of their terracotta pots, which stood proudly on the balcony. There was something deeply reassuring about those little plants, thriving quietly and steadily, despite the chaos of life. I poured myself a cup of coffee, letting the steam curl gently around my face, a warm kiss that held the promise of comfort. The sip was rich, the kind of warmth that spread from my lips down to my belly, and I smiled softly at the thought of how simple moments like this could weave together into a tapestry of calm. Still, lurking beneath the surface, I felt a familiar twinge of apprehension. I had spent years building my career in a field I once loved, but lately it felt as if I was just going through the motions. The prospect of moving forward into the unknown filled me with a mix of dread and delight. Each step forward felt like a leap into uncharted waters. Would I find my way? Could I? As I sat down at the table, I glanced at the small stack of notes I had jotted down the night before. They were rough thoughts and ideas, sketches of a new path I wanted to explore. They seemed like promises made to myself, little anchors of dreams that had long been tucked away. The sun over the oak tree glimmered through the window, lighting up the edges of the pages, whispering reminders that it was okay to shine, to seek the light I had been craving for so long. In that moment, I sensed a quiet resolve building inside me, as if I were sitting at the edge of a peaceful pond, the surface still and inviting. I took a deep breath, letting the air fill my lungs, and closed my eyes for just a moment. I could hear the gentle tick of the clock, each tick a reminder that time doesn't pause for anyone but encourages us to embrace every small moment. The sound of the coffee pot gurgled softly in the background, and I felt time wrap around me like a warm blanket. I could hear the distant laughter of children playing outside, their joy floating through the air, a reminder of life's simple pleasures. I set my cup down and allowed my thoughts to drift like clouds across the sky. Soon, I wandered into memories of my childhood, running barefoot in the grass, feeling the earth beneath my feet, the exhilaration of simply being alive. I remembered lazy afternoons spent in the shade of that same old oak tree, pretending to be a sailor on uncharted seas, letting my imagination carry me away. There was a sweetness to those memories, a gentle reminder that bravery often begins in the most ordinary of moments. I opened my eyes and looked around my kitchen. The light felt softer now, wrapping around me like a hug. I noticed the way the sun caught the dust motes dancing in the air, as if to remind me that everything, even the seemingly mundane, held its own beauty. Perhaps it was time to embrace the unknown ahead of me, to step into the sunlight just as those dust motes did. With a small sigh, I stood up and walked toward the balcony, ready to see how my little herbs were doing. The plants greeted me with their tender green leaves, swaying gently in the breeze. I couldn't help but smile at the sight, a small riot of life just waiting to flourish. I could feel the warmth of the sun on my skin, the gentle brush of the wind through my hair. It felt like the universe, in all its quiet wisdom, was reminding me to trust my instincts, to let go of what no longer served me. There was something soothing in the act of watering them. Each droplet fell softly to the soil, nourishing those little sprouts of promise. I imagined those plants growing tall, thriving under the sun, just as I hoped to do. Each gentle splash felt like a small acknowledgement of my hopes and fears both. The courage to start anew, and the lingering doubts that trailed behind me like shadows. I took a moment to simply breathe, to feel the air fill my lungs and release the weight I had carried for so long. I watched as the sunlight shifted, the world around me glowing in a golden hue, inviting me to embrace the possibilities waiting just on the edge of my understanding. In that quiet moment, standing amidst the gentle sway of green, I felt a flicker of hope blossom within me, like the first tender shoots pushing through the soil. As I stood there, time seemed to stretch. I could hear the distant laughter again, the soft rustle of leaves, and I let the sounds wash over me. I thought about invitations I could extend to my future pursuits, how I could reach out to people who inspired me, how I could rekindle my own passions. The thought did not feel daunting. It felt like opening a window to let fresh air in. With the sun warming my back, I took a deep breath and let it out slowly, feeling the last remnants of doubt slipping away. I turned back toward the kitchen, feeling lighter, as if each step I took was filling me with new energy. The delicious aroma of breakfast still lingered in the air, a grounding reminder of my small accomplishments, the little joys of the day. As I settled back down at the table, I found solace in the familiar clink of dishes, the soft rustling of my notes, and the gentle hum of the world outside. With each sip of coffee, I recognized the strength of my decision. It was a quiet, unassuming power, one that would guide me forward as surely as the sun rose each day. In that peaceful sanctuary of my home, I allowed the warmth of the morning to wash over me, to wrap me in its gentle embrace. The uncertainty of the future no longer felt like a weight, but rather a canvas, blank and waiting for the colors of my aspirations to fill it in. I closed my eyes once more, feeling the rhythm of my breathing sync with the world around me, the soft lull of existence coaxing me deeper into a state of calm. And so, wrapped in the stillness of my thoughts and the warmth of the morning light, I drifted into a space of contentment. Each breath carried me closer to a place of quiet resolve. The day was unfolding, waiting for my next steps, and I was finally ready to step into the sunlight, ready to embrace it all. Lifting my head slightly, I basked in the glow of the moment, soft, inviting, and full of promise. In the fading light of day, I felt at peace, knowing that everything was all right, and that my heart was open to whatever came next. With that thought, I let myself drift away, cradled by the simplicity of the day, wrapped in the warmth of home. Let yourself relax as we begin the next story. The air was thick with the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee, the kind that wrapped itself around you like a warm embrace on a chilly morning. Sunlight filtered softly through the window, casting playful shadows across the kitchen table, where an old, well-loved ceramic mug sat waiting, its edges worn smooth from years of use. The light had that golden glow, a promise of a sunny day ahead as the birds sang outside, flitting from branch to branch in the towering maple tree. I had always loved mornings like this. The world outside was waking up slowly, and so was I. The gentle hum of the refrigerator formed a steady background noise, punctuated only by the occasional crackle of the coffee maker as it sputtered with the last bit of its brew. I inhaled deeply, the warmth of the coffee mingling with the faint smell of toast, slightly burnt but still fragrant, drifting from the toaster. In that moment, everything felt just right. I could hear the soft rustle of newspaper pages being turned, the sound of my neighbor, Mr. Thompson, as he settled into his usual spot on his front porch, coffee in hand, ready for his morning people watching. It was a Saturday, which meant the day ahead was still wide open, brimming with possibilities. I smiled to myself, thinking about the usual rhythm of the weekend. Perhaps a trip to the farmer's market, a leisurely stroll through town, or maybe even curling up with a good book. Just as I was about to pour myself a second cup of coffee, there was a soft knock at my door. It was a familiar sound, a gentle rapping that only a handful of people used. I glanced at the clock, wondering if it was too early for a visit, but the thought quickly faded away as I opened the door to see Sarah standing there, her hair tousled and her cheeks flushed from the brisk morning air. "Hey, I hope I'm not interrupting anything," she said, her voice bright and cheerful. She stepped inside, immediately embracing the warmth of the kitchen. "I figured you'd be up and about. I brought some muffins. Now and Jenny." I stepped aside, waving her in, and watched as she placed a small basket on the table. The muffins looked delightful, their tops golden and slightly domed, with bits of fruit peeking through the soft, fluffy surface. "These look amazing." "What kind?" I asked, curious. "Lemon and blueberry, my favorite." She beamed, and as she spoke, a few loose strands of hair danced across her forehead, and I couldn't help but smile. Sarah was always so full of energy, like a burst of sunshine on a cloudy day. As we settled into comfortable chairs at the table, the aromatic scent of coffee mingling with the sweet tang of lemon, we reminisced about old times, the moments that had brought us to this very kitchen, the laughter that had echoed through the halls of our shared memories. "Remember that time we tried to bake a cake for Emily's birthday?" She chuckled, shaking her head. "I still can't believe we thought substituting salt for sugar would give us the same result." The look on Emily's face, I think she was more confused than anything. "Then, son," I laughed, picturing the scene vividly. Emily's bewildered expression as she took that first fateful bite. It felt good to revisit those moments, to let the past wash over us like a gentle tide, reminding me of the layers of friendship that had formed between us. Our conversation flowed easily, moving from one topic to another, like leaves drifting along a quiet stream. Eventually, amidst the laughter and the muffins, I noticed something peculiar. The light from the window caught Sarah's ring in the sunshine, and it glimmered in the most enchanting way. I found myself drawn to it, entranced by the way it refracted light, casting tiny rainbows on the table. "You know," I said softly, "your ring is stunning. It must have some history." "None." She smiled, tilting her head to see it sparkle. "Oh, it was my grandmother's. I always loved it. And when she passed, my mom gave it to me. It feels like a little bit of her is always with me, you know?" "None." I nodded, knowing how much sentiment could be held in such an object. "That's lovely. It reminds me of my grandma's old bracelet, the one with the tiny charms. I used to love listening to her stories about each one. Talking about family seemed to deepen the connection between us, the warmth of shared memories wrapping us like a soft blanket. But then, just as I reached for a muffin, I noticed something strange. The basket had seemed fuller before, and now it was half empty. "Did you eat all the ones with chocolate chips?" I teased, but as I glanced at Sarah, her expression shifted from playful to slightly confused. "I didn't bring any with chocolate chips. Just lemon blueberry," she replied, her brow furrowing slightly. "You were the one who insisted we make them." I blinked, my heart skipping a little. "No, I thought you said." I trailed off, but as I scanned my memory, I realized I might have misheard her in the excitement of our conversation. "Ah, I must have confused the muffins. I thought you meant lemon and chocolate chip, a recipe I saw last week. I was so convinced we'd have both." "None." The realization settled in like a gentle rain, and we both burst out laughing. The kind of laughter that feels good in your chest, like a sunny afternoon after a week of rain. "What a silly mix-up," she chuckled. "But honestly, I think I'd rather have these muffins any day. Just wait until you taste them." "No." As if on cue, I took a bite. The flavors burst in my mouth, sweet and tangy, all at once, and I closed my eyes for a moment to savor it. I could almost feel the sleepy warmth of the morning wrapping around me tighter, the world outside fading away as I focused solely on the taste and Sarah's bright, happy laughter filling the kitchen. "Okay, next time I promise I'll bring chocolate chip." "I think I owe you one," she said, wiping a stray crumb from her lips, her eyes sparkling with mischief. The conversation drifted back to lighter topics, but every now and then, I found my thoughts wandering back to our little mix-up. How easily a misunderstanding could lead to something so sweet and delightful. It reminded me that sometimes, life had its own little ways of adjusting our expectations, leading us somewhere entirely unexpected. As the morning sun continued its slow climb across the sky, I could feel the warmth of contentment settling deeper into my bone. Sarah and I chatted about everything and nothing, the minutes slipping by like soft whispers, each moment cocooning us in a sense of coziness that was hard to resist. Eventually, we reached a comfortable silence, both of us basking in the afterglow of the muffins we had shared, the coffee warming our hands as we sat in our little haven. I glanced outside, watching the clouds lazily drift across the blue canvas above, feeling grateful for the time spent together, the laughter shared, and the simple joys that life seemed determined to offer despite the inevitable mix-up along the way. It's days like this when everything feels just right, I said quietly, and Sarah nodded thoughtfully, her gaze drifting to the window. It really does, she replied. Who would have thought a little misunderstanding could lead to such a lovely morning? Exactly, I mused, the corners of my mouth lifting in a calm smile. As the day continued, I felt a gentle wave of drowsiness wash over me, a slow tide retreating as the warmth of good company lingered in the air. I leaned back in my chair, letting the peace of the moment surround me, the soft rhythm of shared moments echoing in the stillness of the kitchen. Eventually, silence settled comfortably between us, a soft lull that felt like settling into a quilt on a cool evening. I closed my eyes, letting the laughter, the muffins, and the lingering warmth of the morning gently soothe my racing thoughts, allowing myself to drift into that soft, hazy space of contentment, where even the most delightful of misunderstandings became cherished memories. And in that moment, nestled in the calm and quiet of a bright kitchen, with the sound of birds singing outside and the gentle warmth of shared laughter, I knew everything was just as it should be. Here's another story to drift off to. The rain had been falling gently all morning, tapping softly against the window panes like a child, asking to come indoors. I sat curled up in the corner of my cozy living room, the warm aroma of honey and chamomile drifting through the air from a steaming mug cradled between my hands. The soft glow of a small lamp illuminated the room, casting delicate shadows that danced along the walls, while the rhythmic sound of the rainfall created a soothing backdrop to my quiet Sunday. Outside, the world appeared washed clean, colors brightening under the gentle tears of the clouds. The garden, drenched yet thriving, glistened in shades of green, the leaves of the ferns opening wider as if to catch every last drop. There was something comforting about this weather, a feeling that invited you to slow down, to tuck yourself away from the world's bustle, and just be. Just as I finished my first sip of tea, too hot, of course, and I felt a soft burn on my tongue, prompting a small chuckle at my own foolishness. There was a faint knock at the door. It was a gentle, hesitant sound, almost seeming to blend with the rain, and I set down my cup. Curiosity piqued. As I opened the door, the sight greeted me with warmth. It was Mrs. Jenkins from next door, her curly hair frizzing slightly in the damp air, a basket of homemade muffins clutched to her chest. "Oh, dear," she exclaimed, her face brightening with a smile that could chase away any clouds. "I hope I'm not interrupting your peaceful morning. I thought you might enjoy some company and a treat or two." "Malinin." Her gentle voice wrapped around me like a favorite old sweater. I stepped aside and beckoned her in, and the moment she crossed the threshold, the room felt full of light. The sweet smell of cinnamon and baked goods wafted in, mingling delightfully with my lingering tea. We settled into the worn, overstuffed sofa, a plush refuge adorned with soft cushions, where she set the basket down between us. "Do help yourself," she said, nudging the basket toward me with a warm laugh. I picked out a muffin, breaking it open to reveal the light steam escaping like an unspoken promise. The sweet scent was a delightful reminder of Saturday mornings long ago, filled with the sounds of laughter and the aroma of baking wafting through my childhood home. I took a bite, savoring the moist texture and the hint of blueberries embedded within, and let out a contented sigh. "I've been meaning to check in on you, Mrs. Jenkins said, her eyes sparkling with a twinkle of mischief. "With all the rain lately, I thought you might be finding it a bit dreary." "It's lovely, really," I replied, my voice softening in agreement. "I've always found something comforting about a good rainstorm. It makes the world feel gentler." No. We talked for hours, nestled together in that cozy corner of my home, sharing memories, laughter, and a few stories about our week. I listened as she recounted a small mishap at the community garden where she had accidentally mixed up her pumpkin plants with zucchini. A classic case of garden chaos, which had us both giggling like old friends. Her laughter, rich and warm, filled the room, stitching our hearts together in shared joy. The rain continued to patter against the window, a steady, calming rhythm that felt like the world was breathing along with us. Occasionally, I'd glance out the window where droplets raced down the glass, making little rivers before vanishing away into the waiting earth. A couple of children splashed through puddles outside, their laughter bubbling up through the sound of the rain, and I felt a weight lift from my chest, as if this simple moment was a reminder of everything beautiful and small. There's something wonderful about community, isn't there? Mrs. Jenkins reflected, her gaze drifting toward the window, her voice dipped in nostalgia. We all have our own little worlds, but here we are, sharing in this moment together. It really is, I agreed, feeling the warmth of her words settle deep inside. It makes everything feel a little lighter, doesn't it? We fell into a comfortable silence, the kind that wraps around you like a soft blanket, allowing each other to be lost in our thoughts. I noticed the way her fingers absently traced the edge of her teacup, the small gesture, a reminder of how at home we both felt in that moment, despite the rain that continued to fall. At some point, as stories flowed from one to another, I found myself drifting back in time, recalling my childhood neighborhood, filled with laughter and the smell of fresh bread from nearby homes. I realized then how much I missed those evenings spent on porches, neighbors sharing their lives, exchanging thoughts and allowing their joys and sorrows to blend together like colors on a painter's canvas. The conversation eventually turned to the upcoming neighborhood potluck that had been planned for the following weekend. It had been a tradition long before I moved in, and somehow through the years it had shifted and teetered, like those old bicycles children once rode around the block, nearly losing their balance but never quite tipping over. I hope we can all come together again, Mrs. Jenkins mused. It feels like it's been too long since we laughed and shared meals together. We need that connection, especially when the world feels heavy outside. Nein, Frau. Her words hung in the air, and as I watched her, I could see a flicker of hope dancing in her eyes. The very same hope I felt nestled in my heart. A gentle reminder that our little community, with all its quirks and fondly held traditions, still had the power to bring us all together, even amid a rainy morning. As the hours slipped by, we finished the last of the muffins, our conversation flowing seamlessly from one topic to another. Outside, the rain began to soften, its pitter-patter becoming a whisper, a lullaby sung by the earth. The clouds began to shy away, just a little, allowing gentle beams of sunlight to peek through, illuminating the dust motes that floated quietly in the air like tiny dancers in a sunlit room. Before I knew it, I could feel the gentle pull of sleep curling around me like a warm quilt. Mrs. Jenkins must have noticed as well, for she offered a soft smile before standing up to gather her things. I should let you rest, dear. I can't thank you enough for today. It's moments like these that make all the difference, isn't it? No. It really is, I replied, the warmth in my chest finding its way to my voice. I'm so glad you stopped by. We exchanged a few more kind words, and soon enough, I found her at the door, a sense of peace washing over me as the evening began to settle in. As she left, the last light of the day painted the sky in soft pastels, and I breathed in the fresh, earthy scent that hung in the air, a reminder of the wonderful day. Once she had waved goodbye and walked back to her own home, I closed the door and returned to my cozy chair, where I savored the stillness around me. The rain had mostly ceased. Now, only a gentle mist that lent everything a shimmer. I let my eyelids droop, cherishing the contentment that enveloped me, a quiet whisper of gratitude for the kindness of neighbors and the sweetness of shared moments. As I settled into a deeper stillness, the room warmed around me, and I allowed myself to drift, knowing that tomorrow would carry with it the promise of laughter, shared meals, and the embrace of community once more. Tonight, I felt the weight of the world lessen, soothed by the love we create together. I took one last deep breath, feeling my heart swell with warmth. The light flickered softly, and with a final sigh, I sank into the comfortable embrace of sleep, grateful, happy, and wrapped in the simple joys that make life utterly beautiful. Take a deep breath, and let's move on to the next one. I remember the smell of fresh bread wafting through the air, a warm and inviting aroma that mingled with the gentle sound of rain tapping softly against the kitchen window. It was a Saturday morning, and the sky outside was a deep, moody gray, the kind of gray that made everything feel snug and still. I sat at the worn wooden table, the surface scarred with the marks of years of family meals and projects. Sunlight struggled to break through the clouds, creating a soft glow that illuminated the dust motes dancing lazily in the air. My fingers curled around a steaming mug of tea, the ceramic warm against my palms. Each sip was a comforting jolt, a reminder of the quiet moments that shaped my days. The world felt at rest. In the background, I could hear the gentle cadence of my mother humming a tune from long ago, her voice mixing with the soft bubbling of the kettle as it heated water for her latest batch of herbal tea. There was a familiarity about those mornings, the way the floor creaked slightly underfoot, the soft clinking of spoon against cup, the distant sound of rain steadily falling, like nature's lullaby. It wrapped around me, creating a cocoon of calm that made the thought of moving from that cozy spot seem almost unnecessary, even though I could hear the distant rumble of my father's laughter from the living room. That laughter had a way of filling the space, much like the bread baking in the oven, warm, comforting, and with the promise of something delicious just around the corner. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the sound wash over me as I breathed in the blend of scents. The yeasty fragrance of bread mingling with the earthy aroma of steeping chamomile. It was the kind of morning that made the outside world feel distant, almost irrelevant. Eventually, the aroma of baking bread coaxed me away from my reverie. I rose from my seat, my feet brushing against the cool tile floor as I made my way to the oven. Peering through the glass, I admired how the loaves of bread were rising, their golden crusts slowly forming, like sunlit hills rising on a quiet morning. The smell made my heart swell with nostalgia, reminding me of countless weekends spent in that very kitchen with my family. The laughter and love kneaded into every loaf. As I turned to rejoin my parents, I noticed my mother's eyes glinting with a hint of mischief. "Do you remember when we tried to bake that sourdough loaf?" she asked, a playful smile dancing on her lips. I chuckled at the memory, how we had ended up with a flat, doughy mess instead of the artisan loaf we'd envisioned. My father had taken one look at it, raised an eyebrow, and declared it a delicious failure. We often joked about that day, how sometimes things didn't work out as planned. Yet there was something beautiful in the trying itself. It brought us closer in those moments of shared laughter and flour-covered aprons. I listened to their laughter now, feeling a gentle pull at the edges of my heart. We had spent so many weekends like this, each moment stitched together with warmth and love, creating an unbreakable tapestry of memories. Yet, there was a lingering thought in the back of my mind, a whisper of change. I had made the decision to move away soon. A new job awaited me in a city that buzzed with energy, a place where everything felt fast and bright. As much as I looked forward to this new chapter, it felt bittersweet to think about leaving the familiarity of home. I glanced at my parents, their faces alight with joy, unaware of the weight of my thoughts. In the gentle pauses that followed their laughter, I could hear my heart beating, a soft reminder of the transition I was about to make. I took a deep breath, inhaling that warm bread scent once more, anchoring myself in the present. It was okay to feel this mix of excitement and melancholy. Later that day, as the rain continued to fall outside, we sat together at the table, enjoying the warm bread slathered in butter, our conversations flowing easily between bites. I listened as my father shared stories from his childhood, the kind that painted vibrant pictures of days gone by. My mother chimed in with her own tales, and soon we were all laughing together. The room filled with a sense of belonging and connection that felt as comforting as the bread itself. In those moments, I allowed myself to forget the impending change, to savor the now. I watched their expressions, the creases around their eyes deepening with laughter, the warmth of their presence wrapping around me like a favorite blanket. Each shared smile and chuckle was a thread woven into the fabric of our family, and I felt a sense of gratitude welling up inside me, like the rising bread in the oven. As the evening crept in, the rain finally slowed to a gentle drizzle, and the sky outside transformed into a dusky blue canvas, stars beginning to twinkle softly against the fading light. We moved to the living room, where the cozy glow of a lamp illuminated our little gathering. The warmth from the bread still lingered, and I found myself nestled on the sofa, my parents on either side, as we continued to reminisce about times past. I could hear the crackle of the fire, warming the room with its gentle sound, adding to the atmosphere of comfort. And as the hours slipped by, weaving in and out of our conversations, I felt a profound sense of peace enveloping me. It was true that I was to leave soon, but I was also learning to appreciate the beauty in letting go. With every shared story, every inhale of the comforting air, I realized that while I would miss this space and this moment, the essence of it would always be a part of me, wherever I went. Soon enough, the laughter softened into sleepy murmurs, and the world outside took on a quiet stillness, the rain now reduced to a mere whisper against the window. My eyelids felt heavy, comforted by the weight of the evening and the warmth of family beside me. Each breath became slower, more deliberate, as I surrendered to the gentle pull of sleep. As I nestled deeper into the sofa, I caught the glimmer of a memory passing, the image of my mother, flour dusting her hair, and my father laughing, holding his heart with joyful abandon. Those moments felt timeless, and I understood that even as I created new stories in a new place, these threads of connection would always remain. With that sense of warmth wrapping around me like a favorite quilt, I breathed out softly, letting the day fade away. I allowed myself to drift, knowing I was safe, held close by love that would never truly let go as I embraced the comfort of sleep. The laughter and the baking and the shared stories would follow me, whispering sweet reminders of where I came from and where I always belong. And as I surrendered to that quiet embrace of sleep, I felt a gentle smile on my lips, knowing that while change was coming, it was nothing to fear, merely a new adventure waiting to unfold. Let yourself relax as we begin the next story. I sat at the small kitchen table, the sunlight pouring in through the window, casting a warm glow over everything it touched. The room smelled like freshly baked blueberry muffins, a scent that reminded me of my childhood summers spent at my grandmother's house. I had spent the morning mixing the batter, my hands dusted with flour and a hint of sweetness lingering from the sugar. The kettle whistled softly on the stove, and I poured hot water over a tea bag, watching the water swirl and darken, turning into a rich amber color. I could hear the faint hum of birds outside, chirping cheerfully in the garden where my mother had tended to her flowers for years. The house felt alive in that moment, filled with the warmth of nostalgia and the quiet comfort of memories. Although I was alone, the space around me thrummed with a sense of familiarity, a cozy blanket woven from laughter and shared moments. Yet, there was an unmistakable heaviness in the air, a lingering shadow that had draped itself over the last few years. One that had made the kitchen feel more like a museum than the lively hub it once was. I took a deep breath, letting the sweetness of the muffins linger in my senses, hoping it might soothe the bittersweet knot in my stomach. As I took a sip of my tea, I gazed out the window, watching the dust dance like tiny fairies in the sunlight. I thought about the sounds of laughter that used to fill this space, the clattering of dishes, the mundane yet comforting conversations we shared over meals. I thought of my sister Maggie, and the years of silence that had crept between us like a slow tide. It wasn't like we had fought or parted on bad terms. It was just that life, as it does, moved us in different directions. Misunderstandings piled up. Small words left unspoken became mountains. And before we knew it, we were living in separate worlds. I had woken up that morning determined to change things, to reach out despite the distance that felt unbridgeable. I thought of texting her, but the thought of her silence held me back. What if she didn't want to talk? What if those years of silence had dulled the connection we once shared? But then I remembered my grandmother's words, spoken over the clinking of teacups. Sometimes, the hardest conversations are the ones that bring the most light. A soft ding from the oven broke my reverie. I got up, opening the door to the warm, buttery aroma of the muffins. They had turned a lovely golden brown, and I could feel the corners of my mouth twitch upwards at the sight. Perfect, I murmured, gently prying one from the tray and letting it cool on a rack. I grabbed a plate and added a handful of strawberries, a small indulgence to make the moment a little brighter. As I arranged the food, something flickered in the back of my mind. A memory of summers gone by. Maggie and I sprawled on the grass under the old oak tree, daring each other to climb higher. The sun filtering through the leaves had painted us in a mosaic of shadows and light, laughter spilling from our lips like water from a spring. I realized, amid the quiet of the kitchen, that I missed her laughter, the kind that wrapped around you like a favorite blanket on a cold day. After preparing a small picnic, I decided to take it to the park nearby, a place where we had once spent countless afternoons. The thought gave me a tiny spark of courage. I needed to reach out to break the silence once and for all. The park was just a short walk down a winding path that led through a grove of trees, their leaves whispering secrets to each other in the gentle breeze. I took my time, each step grounding me in the moment, feeling the cool grass beneath my feet and the warm sun on my shoulders. That park held so many memories, and I hoped it still held room for new ones, for reconciliations. When I arrived, families were scattered on the grass, children playing tag, couples enjoying the day, and friends sitting on benches sharing stories and laughter. The air was tinged with the sweet scent of blooming flowers and the distant smell of grilled burgers wafting from a nearby barbecue. I made my way across the park, heart thumping in my chest as I searched for a familiar figure. I spotted Maggie sitting on a bench, her unmistakable silhouette framed by the swaying branches of a willow tree. She was reading, a book resting on her lap. My heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, I hesitated, unsure of how to approach. Memories flooded back. Her soft laughter, the way she could roll her eyes at my attempts to impress her. With a deep breath, I walked towards her, each step deliberate and steady. As I got closer, I could see her brow furrowed in concentration, just like when we were kids, lost in a story, our imaginations soaring. She looked up, surprise etched across her face, and for a brief moment, the world around us faded as I searched her eyes for a hint of recognition. "Hey," I said softly, a gentle smile creeping onto my face. "Mind if I join you?" It felt like stepping into a rushing river, the current pulling me towards the unknown. She blinked, her expression shifting from surprise to a mix of uncertainty and warmth. "Hey," she replied, her voice quiet but steady. "Oh, of course." As I settled next to her, the familiar weight of years hung between us, but there was a softness in the air, a hopefulness that felt like the first light of dawn after a long night. I placed the picnic basket between us, the unmistakable scent of blueberry muffins wafting up, breaking the tension. "I made these," I said, gesturing to the basket. "Thought you might like some." Her lips quirked upward, a ghost of a smile appearing. "You always did make the best muffins." There was a lightness in her tone, and just like that, the atmosphere began to shift, slowly erasing the years of silence. We shared the muffins, each bite accompanied by small stories. Tales of awkward encounters at work, new hobbies, and the quiet joys of daily life. I felt the distance between us beginning to close, like the gentle ebb and flow of a tide. Laughter bubbled to the surface, sometimes hesitant but always sincere. She shared a memory of a clumsy waiter who had spilled coffee all over her lap during a lunch date, a mishap I could picture vividly. "Let me guess," I said, grinning. "You made it a dramatic scene?" "Oh, absolutely," she replied, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "I may have acted as if it were the end of the world, crying over my ruined outfit and all." We chuckled together, and in that moment it felt like we were back in the past, just a couple of kids on a summer afternoon, sharing secrets and laughter under the sun. As the day wore on, the sky began to shift, hues of orange and pink painting the horizon. It felt like a reminder that though time had passed, there was still beauty to be found. I could feel my shoulders relaxing, the weight of uncertainty melting away. As I glanced over at Maggie, I noticed a softness in her expression, a look that said she too was remembering. "I missed this," she confessed. "I missed you." "I missed you too," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I thought about reaching out for so long, but I didn't know how to cross that distance. A small pause hung between us, the weight of our unspoken words finally giving way to understanding. "I think I was scared," she admitted, her voice steady yet vulnerable. "Scared of what we had lost. But look at us now," I said, taking a deep breath. "We're here. Together." Dali. Her eyes met mine, and in that moment, everything felt lighter, the tension that had once wound itself so tightly around us beginning to unravel. We continued to talk, our words flowing easily as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm glow over the park. I could sense the connection rekindling, the bonds of sisterhood weaving themselves anew in the soft embrace of the evening. Eventually, the sun sank beyond the horizon, and the first stars began to twinkle in the twilight sky, casting a gentle silver light upon the grass. As the cool air brushed against our skin, I reached for her hand, squeezing it softly. "Let's not wait this long again, okay?" She nodded, a small, content smile spreading across her face. "Agreed." As we sat there, side by side, the worries of the world seemed to fade away, replaced by a comfortable warmth that swaddled us like a soft blanket. The gentle sounds of the park faded into the background, the occasional laughter, the rustle of leaves, and all that remained was the stillness, the reconnection, and a promise that the distance wouldn't stretch again. In that moment, it felt like home, like a missing piece had finally slotted back into place. We lingered for a while longer, simply enjoying the quiet company we had once taken for granted, allowing ourselves to drift into that space where everything felt just right. As I finally rose to leave, the night enveloping us like a tender embrace, I felt a deep sense of gratitude and closure, an assurance that some wounds, given time, really can heal. The journey back home felt lighter, buoyed by the laughter and the memories we'd rekindled. And as I prepared for the day to end, I closed my eyes, a soft smile resting on my lips, grateful for the warmth of family and a promise of a new beginning. I climbed into bed, the cool sheets wrapping around me like a reassuring hug. I breathed in deeply, reflecting on the warmth of the day, the laughter shared, the reconnection, and the love that always remained. As I switched off the lamp, the world around me faded gently into stillness, and I drifted off into a peaceful sleep, knowing that sometimes the hardest steps lead us to the brightest places. And that's the last story for tonight. You've traveled a long way to get here, through 6 quiet worlds, 6 small lives, 6 gentle resolutions. Your breathing is slower now. Your body is heavy and warm. There's nothing left to think about, just the quiet. Just the dark. Just rest. Good night.